Hello, my name is Kobe Williams, host of Palmetto Happenings with Kobe, a show all about economic development, workforce development, and commercial real estate and tourism in the state of South Carolina. I am here today with Mr. John Orr of Carolina Retail Experts in the great city of Charleston, South Carolina. And this is a beautiful building right here. And we're wearing our seersucker suits. And it's a win. How are you doing today, John?
Great, Kobe. Thanks so much for having me. I'm glad we could make it happen today.
Absolutely, yes, sir. Yes, sir. I'm excited to have you. You're a fantastic leader in the region, and it's good to have you on the show. So, tell our viewers about yourself.
So, I like to call myself a student of the retail commercial real estate industry. I have been in real estate my entire life. I got my license initially when I was 18 years old, and 3 years later I got my broker's license in Georgia. A few years later I moved to South Carolina, and I've been licensed long enough that I have exempted some of the continuing ed requirements.
Yeah, absolutely.
But my path started as a kid in Atlanta. My dad was a developer of subdivisions, and not so much, he built a few houses, but mainly the horizontal development. Roads, the infrastructure, and such as that. So as a kid, I grew up, the sand pile I played in was on a job site. You know, we didn't have one at home. And that really is what is where real estate took hold of my life. And throughout my time in high school and college, I really never considered anything as a career other than a brief stint as a professional bike racer and triathlete, which once I figured out I was about a fourth place finisher and they only paid the first three places, I couldn't make a living doing that. So, and then I was in Atlanta then and joined a third-party leasing management company and found that leasing retail commercial real estate came pretty intuitively to me. Did that for a couple of years, joined a firm that was what we would call a REIT now. It was an REIT structure called Equity Investment Group, and we bought about 135 shopping centers, mainly in the eastern half of the country over about 4 or 5 year period. And the plan was to sell that and take it public in the mid-90s, but the public REIT market went the tank, but they still bought the company. And so that's when we bought a couple of shopping centers in Charleston. And from the moment I landed, other than the heat and humidity in a three-piece suit, I thought, I really like this place. Downtown Charleston, it's so mystical and everything. So moved to Charleston and began developing shopping centers, the Publix on Daniel Island, which folks may know, some other Kroger projects and Food Lion projects and Publix around the Southeast. And after a few years of that, it was the time when drugstores had just begun to go freestanding because the grocery stores didn't really like the competition in the shopping center. And the whole idea of the shopping center is you have different merchants. A customer can come and buy your groceries and your drugs and your dollar store items, get your hair done, whatever. But they didn't like the competition. So the drugstores decided they'd go to an out parcel with a drive-through, and that was working great for them. But it seemed to make sense that auto parts and dollar stores should do the same. So I began working with AutoZone and started a company. We were
get in the zone, AutoZone.
Get in the zone. And so we got into the zone. Yep. We were the largest developer in the country for AutoZone for a few years, and about a 9-state southeastern region. Also, Family Dollar. We did a tremendous number of deals with them, and a few small shopping centers. But we were very, very focused on that single tenant net lease, build-to-suit development. And then after about 10 years, I sold the company to my partner, my half of the company, my partner, which is still around today, and they still do a great job. The company's Twin Rivers Capital here in Charleston. And it was the early 90s, and pretty much like everyone else in real estate or kind of any other business was on sabbatical because there was no real estate to do with the economic situation. And so I factored receivables and rode my bike and decided to learn how to play the banjo. So that's
nice.
my other part-time gig,
Yeah.
which was a lot of fun.
Mm-hmm.
And a friend of mine called and said, "Hey, I want to go to lunch." And I said, "Sure, but we've worked together for 10 years. We've never gone to lunch because you don't go to lunch." And he said, "No, seriously." So we met at the Griffin, which is a great little pub here in Charleston. Maybe one of the oldest in the country. Maybe to fact check that, but it seems like it when you walk in there.
Yeah, it feels like it.
Great vibe.
I love it. I love the ambiance, man.
And so I probably wore shoes, but certainly shorts and t-shirt. And I said, "All right, so come, what's up?" Because, well, actually, now that you mention it, there's this big bankruptcy case, and I'm the real estate partner in the firm, and I'd like you to go home and shave and put on a suit and come to federal bankruptcy court in the morning. I'd like to propose you as the real estate professional in the case. And so, like, "Oh no, I'm out. I'm out. You know, I'm doing other things." He said, "No, you need to do this." And I didn't take it as seriously as I should, but a friend of mine, Peter Finley at Collier's, it was his son's birthday party, and so I went to the birthday party, and Peter, in true to form, "What are you working on? I said, "Well, now that you mention it, there is a project, I could partner with you guys." He goes, "Great, come on, join it from us." I was like, No, I just want to partner with you on this and see how it goes." Short story, we partnered on it, and it was the Harry Pavlik, who you probably know from the Myrtle Beach area.
Yeah, I know that.
One of the biggest cases in state history, might to this day still be.
Yeah.
So we
very much is
cataloged, analyzed, valued the entire portfolio, and I seem to remember it was around 13 states, all different product types, from land to houses to industrial buildings. It was a ranch in Texas, and of course retail. And so we started selling that off, and then we figured out it got a little more complicated. But at that point, I had been back in the game, as they say, and it renewed my love and my passion for the retail. And I went to Las Vegas to the ICSC in May, the Super Bowl of retail commercial real estate.
It really is.
And with 50,000 of my closest friends, and it really took off from there. And of course, I joined Collier's at the time full time, and a friend of mine ran the real estate school at the College of Charleston and asked me to come speak to the class. And so I went and took an old lease, and we went through the lease, and I said, here are the other things that are more important possibly than the rent, use clauses and whatnot. And we're polite if we're anything in Charleston. So as I left
Southern hospitality,
I left some business cards on the lectern. And I said, "Call me if anyone's interested in an internship." And really not interested in an intern. The last thing I needed was some college kid as an intern. But one particular student who was about to graduate, Elise Welch, called and emailed and texted and was relentless. And ultimately that led to us meeting, and it's a great story. We'll come back to the full story for another time, but we began working together then and built and grew what has evolved into Carolina Retail Experts over the years. And the foundation of what we do is to bring concepts to communities. That's through retail commercial real estate. And to that end, we work for owners of retail commercial real estate, tenants or occupants of retail commercial real estate, and investors through the investment sales. And most of the folks that we work for are professional owners of real estate, REITs or family offices or something like that. And then a lot of the professional tenants, Starbucks, Academy Sports,
I think of you. So whenever I think of Starbucks, I think of you, Al. You literally just hit that. I was hoping he was going to say Starbucks.
Exactly. Dealmaker Monday.
Yeah, exactly. Dealmaker Monday. I always love those on the Instagram. They have a fantastic social media presence, by the way, y'all.
Carolina Retail Experts.
Yes, absolutely.
And so we left Colliers, went to Lee and Associates, where we met. We'd known Lindsay Halter, and Lindsay joined our team, and COVID came, and everyone started working from home, but our business didn't slow down. And retail leasing is it's a long cycle from inception through actually opening. A store can take 18 months, on a build-to-suit development. But we're very fortunate. We had a lot of clients who were Starbucks, for example, were aggressive. They had come out of the pandemic in Asia and Eastern Europe, and they knew that people would come back and buy coffee. So they doubled down on opening stores, and we were fortunate to be working for them. And so, what better time to start your own real estate firm than the middle of COVID?
It was an interesting time. And you guys are certainly nailing it.
And so that's when we started Carolina Retail Experts. And since then we're about 3 years in. We just moved into this office space, which is on King Street, right above Oku Restaurant. From a space across the street, which was a little bit smaller to have a little bit more room to expand and grow. We've got some new people that we've added, about 10 people now. So we've been very, very fortunate, knock on wood, and but a big part of that is the guiding light of bringing the concepts to the communities. Give the people what they want, what they need, the right deal, the right time, for the right reasons. And so that is a kind of a guiding principle of Carolina Retail Experts has really proven to be more important than any one particular deal or any other reason to drive the business.
So, that's a fantastic story. Can you tell me about, what's the theme? Because there's you have a great social media presence. That's what I think of y'all. I always encourage our students to follow you on Carolina Retail, John, or on LinkedIn or Facebook or Instagram or whatever, because you guys have such a great social media presence. And I think it's great for our students to know. So tell me, what's the theme of CRE?
Well, it's interesting. My infatuation, if you will, with social media began during my sabbatical, for lack of a better word, and that's about when Twitter came out. It was invented here in Charleston, right? And so
I didn't know that. Okay, wow, that's cool.
Little nugget. And at the time, it was limited to, I believe, 140 characters, no images, and there were a very, very small group of people who, were early adopters, and we would tweet. I had cereal for breakfast. Nobody cares. But over the years, I just stayed involved and engaged, and I saw it's very difficult to measure the return on social media efforts. Because it's not like I work on this deal and I get paid for it. It's you put it out there. It's about building the brand, building the presence,
relationships.
The relationships. Knowing people that are in other parts of the country or the world in many cases. And so I really kind of doubled down on that with Twitter, and then throughout the course of Facebook and Instagram, now on TikTok. John or CCIM on all the platforms. And
you have a cartoon version of yourself. The whole team does.
We have caricatures and everything, and so and so we've really embraced social media. And while it's impossible to say, there are a few deals that I can point to and say this came from a social media connection. But the intrinsic value of it. I'm going to read the news articles anyway, so I put it out there, and if you follow me, you'll like it, and if you don't like it, don't follow me. It's current, relevant, and interesting, and if it meets those three hurdles, then I like it. You'll like it. We'll, it's good for everybody.
I love it. I want more of it. Yeah, I mean, so like the theme of your tenants, they kind of follow. Like whenever I think of Starbucks, I think of CRE. When I think of Publix, I even think of CRE.
Right.
And those are like the kind of the unique things, that you kind of the unique, I guess, tenants you look for. People with like a cool, slick look. I like the word slick. That's kind of like the word I look for. Right.
Yeah. Well, I think it's important to, through social media, articulate your brand.
Yeah.
And I think it's important that people know that we are the retail commercial real estate experts throughout South Carolina and North Carolina, Georgia. And how you know that is, the hashtag Dealmaker Monday. Every Monday we post a new deal.
Yep.
And without fail, I guarantee you it's going to be there. And sometimes we have to post more than one a week, but that is how you know what we're doing and how you know if you have a site to be developed or you're a tenant and you look for a location. You understand that we do retail, commercial real estate, don't do office space or industrial, but we do retail and we're the experts. And so we try to articulate that through social media, and it's been really effective the more it's taken off and over the years.
Yeah. What kind of so are there any current listings that you like to advertise or that you're excited about? I know you're probably excited about all of them, but
we love them all. And so there are several. I mean, we're very, very active on King Street. We do a great deal of tenant rep work up and down King Street for national, international brands. We have a few listings on King Street that we work for big property owners. And then probably one of the most interesting projects, and this is one that actually won an award, was last year.
Yeah, you're talking about Morrison Yard?
Morrison Yard. Morrison Yard on Morrison Drive is probably one of the perfect mixed-use developments. And when I say that, it has a residential component, there's a multifamily component with first floor retail, Morrison Yard residences, and then next door there's another building that is the Morrison Yard office building, and there's office space above retail, and they're in the process of adding hospitality components. I mean, so it's walkable, it's close, it has parking hidden and integrated into the project, and it's close, it's convenient. The architecture is simply stunning. If you come across the Cooper River Bridge, you look and you see
I see it every time I go over it. I love it.
I mean, it is unbelievable.
It is. And I'll overlay some pictures of Morrison Yard over this video and show you guys a little bit of it. It's an absolutely beautiful, and it won the South Carolina Real Estate Award over at our Economic Growth and Real Estate Summit over at the Grant Center last year, and it's a fantastic development. And what kind of tenants are in that development? When it comes to commercial, like what do you look for? What's there right now, and what do you want to see there?
Right. So it's interesting because on the ground floor retail, it's a little bit different than a shopping center because it's not necessarily the anchor tenant. For example, a Publix anchored shopping center, everybody comes for Publix. Like we have another project, number 10 West Edge, over on the peninsula of Charleston, and there are residences above the Publix, and Publix is the main anchor store there. People come to Publix whether or not they live there or work in number 22 West Edge in the office building or 99 the residential building. But that's one of the big drivers, separate from the population that lives and works there all day. Whereas with Morrison Yard, there's not physically the space to have a big anchor like that. So the businesses are, of course, in the office space, they're office tenants, but on the ground floor retail, those tenants are more food, hospitality driven. service-oriented businesses, a bank, for example, and we've got a couple that are going to be on Dealmaker Monday soon. That you'll see. But the general idea is to create a retail tenant lineup that is complementary to the services and goods that the residences and office occupants need every day. So it's more of a service-driven retail, and the theory there is if you have the right retail mix, and the economics have proven themselves on King Street and projects all over the country, is if it's $1 less in rent for that perfect tenant in the mix, then you can increase the rents on 250 apartments by $1 a foot, and it way outperforms the little bit of rent that you would have gotten on the retail space. So it's you have to be conscious of that, and I think the key thing is we like to think of the merchandising mix, as we call it. Think in terms of, if you go to a women's clothing store, you expect to find dresses and shoes and handbags, but you don't expect to find a shovel. Right? If you go to Lowe's, you don't expect to find dresses and shoes and handbags. So it's really important that, and it's a big challenge to get complementary tenants in there that help play on each other, that you would expect to find in that sort of a project.
Yeah. You're touching on a topic that I kind of want to segue into, because Morrison Yard plays into kind of the future of it's going to eye to the future while kind of also honoring the past and the history and the beauty of Charleston. Can you tell me what is, I mean, you're talking about a lot of different things when it comes to adapting, what Morrison Yard's doing to embrace the future. But what else is, I guess maybe we can apply this on a much wider scale. What is Charleston doing to embrace the future while kind of honoring the past? I think that's kind of like where we're heading.
I think that's a great question, and the development climate in Charleston is probably a 10 out of a 10 challenging, because just about everything's historic, right? Yep. So, and
every step's a historical
every single thing is historical. I mean, you have to go through and get a permit to repaint your house the same color, which, I mean, and there's, by and large, it's a good thing. It's a challenge for sure, but that's the good news, is because it's really helped Charleston keep its historic charm, yet being able to create places that people can live and work and play that are current, modern, and people that are young college graduates move here and they can work from home. They work on social media or whatever their job is, but they don't live in a 150-year-old house where, and our floors here are actually a little slanted because we call that the Charleston slant. But it's a current, modern environment that architecturally looks historic. And so it keeps the charm, yet inside, there are the most modern fiber optic cable, LEED efficiency, energy ratings, and everything like that. So, so it's certainly a challenge because there's only so much land in Charleston, and so the city and the developers, property owners have gone to great pains to make sure to preserve the historic parts, and when redeveloping, to make sure that those redevelopments have a nod to the history of Charleston, but yet are current, inviting, and interesting, and meet the needs of the people, because people are moving here in droves. I mean, Charleston,
Yep.
all of South Carolina.
The coastal South Carolina especially. It's
Right.
through the seams, man. Bursting through the seams.
I mean, they're just coming and they won't stop. And
Yep.
I mean, and if you've been north or anywhere during the winter, it's cold.
It's cold.
It doesn't get cold here.
It's very
now,
cold.
It gets hot here.
It's really hot.
But it's a nice hot.
It's a breeze hot.
Right.
Yeah, it's a breeze.
And those economic drivers are jobs.
Yep.
I mean, some of the biggest employers are Boeing, Mercedes-Benz, Volvo, Google, the medical community.
Yeah, medical community, but Google also. Yeah, I mean,
huge server farms, right?
Huge. I mean, it's good. Talking about connecting, the whole region together, coastal South Carolina together. You talk about the students, working from home, all that stuff. We got a subsea fiber optic cable that's going to be installed. It's a data center that's going to be installed off the coast of Myrtle Beach. That I think it's going to go south, through the Charleston area. That I think is going to increase the internet. Basically creating the Silicon Valley of the South. I mean, that's what
Silicon Harbor.
Exactly. This whole area is going to be, this whole coastal South Carolina is going to be basically Silicon Valley of the South. I love it. It's exciting stuff,
It is absolutely. And the third largest industry in Charleston is healthcare.
Yeah,
and
USC, Prisma, all those guys.
And when you start talking about healthcare, I mean, you can't talk about modern healthcare without technology.
Yep.
Fiber optic cable, remote surgeries. I know we've all seen it. AI to detect cancer years ahead of anything that a doctor could possibly imagine. So I mean, those tip of the spear technological advancements. The Medical University of South Carolina is a teaching hospital.
Yep.
They're completely entrenched in all that research, and it's one of the best places in the world if you're sick. I mean, you want to be here because these are the smartest doctors literally in the southeast, if not some of the country. So
100%. I mean, the MUSC has been personally been great for me. I mean, throughout my life, and I think, but all the medical systems throughout South Carolina are pretty good, and top notch.
Phenomenal.
I think of Common Medical Center out in our area that I just kind of come to think of off the top of my head. And then Prisma Health down here, and they're actually in the Myrtle Beach area, I think, as well. And Roper, Tidelands, MUSC, it's just all awesome, top notch.
And they all do a great job. And one of the big components of healthcare that we've seen really blossom in the last few years is the urgent care business.
Yep.
The doc in the box, they call it, or
Telehealth,
emergent care. Telehealth is a big thing, and even optical dental. I mean, all of that has moved. The dentist office model has completely changed. They've moved to retail space now, and it's because that's more customer forward. That's what the customer wants. So that's what the providers are adapting to, and it is fantastic for everyone.
Yep, and your tenants are kind of, they're addressing these needs. They're capitalizing on these opportunities too. Which again, I like what Carolina Retail Experts do, because that's what you guys do. And you attract those kind of people, which in effect are benefiting this Palmetto State. Hence, Palmetto Happenings with Kobe, because I like to promote Palmetto State. And this is awesome. I mean, it's good stuff. I don't necessarily like the focus on the weaknesses, of anything really. But so maybe like, what kind of opportunities, on a regional scale, could this could we maybe as in the south, the coast of South Carolina, or we as in Charleston, could be taken advantage of, to really push us forward, streamline us further, even though we are pretty good as it is. But what can make us even stronger?
Well, so I like to think of it in terms of what benefits do we have in place today that we can leverage and overcome obstacles, right? Some of the challenges out there. And one of the greatest benefits South Carolina has, of course, is the Port of Charleston.
Yep.
And that's not just a Charleston thing. I mean, it's important for BMW in the upstate. They ship most of their vehicles out of the Port of Charleston. Volvo will do the same. But that's good for Charleston. But what's really great for the entire state of South Carolina, because we're talking about Palmetto Happenings with Kobe, is the inland port.
Yep, exactly.
Right?
Greer and Dillon.
Greer and Dillon.
Yep.
And it was a vision years ago, and there are direct rail connections to both Greer and Dillon, because one of the big challenges is the infrastructure. I mean, when you have a city that's literally hundreds of years old, like Charleston, it's hard to go knock down a 200-year-old building just to justify building a road, right? So, and the port of Charleston is right downtown on the peninsula, so you know it's one of the more challenging places to ingress and egress. But what this inland port system has done is it's given the ability, without truck traffic, to rail goods and services to and from Dillon, which is kind of a spoke in a wheel concept, and then you get on the interstates, 85, 95, whatever, and then you can distribute, you know, to basically the eastern half of the country for the most part. And it was met with a little bit of indecision early on, but it literally has proven to be one of the most economic viable situations for the entire state.
I mean, it's really capitalizing on, you know, the idea of in the land of opportunity. South Carolina is that opportunity because, you know, the rails, you connect manufacturing, distribution centers, even agritourism.
It's a great thing to leverage those resources that we have, but the challenge that it helps to mitigate is the roads infrastructure. Right? Because roads are expensive to build, especially along the coast.
$1 million is like $1. You know?
Oh yeah, and the price tag just keeps rolling up every day. So it's hard to go across wetlands, because you have roads that are literally bridges for miles. And so that's one of the big challenges with some 40-odd people a day moving to Charleston, is how do you house those people and how do you get them from their homes to their jobs? You got to have roads, right? You got to have water, you got to have sanitary, you got to have schools, you know, all this other infrastructure. And when you take that port traffic off of the roads, it's a tremendous game changer in terms of traffic. It frees it up for the general population. And so that's one of the big benefits, because, I mean, quite frankly, Charleston, the coast, almost statewide, one of the biggest challenges is the road system, you know, and they're hard to build, they're incredibly expensive to maintain and rebuild, and we're outpacing, the growth is outpacing the construction.
You can't keep up with it.
It's impossible to keep up with. So the more that you can mitigate through the inland port rail traffic, and you know, in Charlotte they have the train. There is, and it's not quite completed yet, but I mean, of course, there's a bus system in Charleston, but there's also they're working on a mass transit system that is going to serve Greater Charleston. It'll go from the peninsula up to Somerville. It'll use some railroad tracks. It'll use some road. I mean, there's various parts. It'll come right through downtown Charleston. So
I was want to mention about that. Public transportation. You know, because that certainly is a hot topic in the Grand Strand. You know, and I know it's an issue. But what are your? I mean, is that an opportunity, or is that? I
think it's a tremendous opportunity. It's one of the greatest opportunities out there, because I remember as kids, parking lots were just free and available everywhere you go, right? And then parking, you know, you saw the first parking deck and you thought, oh, that's only in the big cities like New York. But I mean, everything in Charleston's there's always a parking issue. And there's always a traffic. I mean, we have 8-9 million visitors a year in Charleston.
It's congestion.
They got to get here, right? They got to get here. But it's interesting because with all the technological advancements in transportation, and that's mass transit, you know, subways in New York, people have learned how to use Uber, for example. And I talk to people that come to Charleston for culinary tourism, and they're here for 3 days. They fly into the airport, they take an Uber to their hotel on King Street, and they either walk or take an Uber or whatever.
Very walkable city, too.
Incredibly walkable city. And so you don't need that car. And we've learned over probably the last 10, 12 years, that it makes, I mean, I live in West Ashley, so I'm 4 or 5 miles from here on King Street. And when we come downtown to a concert or to dinner or whatever, I can take an Uber from my house here, round trip, for about $20, right?
Okay. Yeah.
But if I drove down here, I'm going to pay $20 to park for 3 hours. And then I park here, I eat there, I go here for an after dinner dessert, drink.
Yeah.
But then I got to go back over here to my car. So, but it's more convenient, and it's what the customer wants.
Yeah.
It works out better. But so as a customer, we like it better. But from an infrastructure standpoint, it takes pressure off of the roads and helps helps alleviate that biggest of problems, I believe.
I've got a feeling, as I continue this series of shows, that's going to be a theme throughout the Palmetto State, is that that's an opportunity, public transportation opportunity, connecting us more, as we diversify our economy more. I know that's a big thing down here in Charleston as well. It's huge in Myrtle Beach. People are expecting to have good public transportation. They're not going to always have a car or anything like that.
It's one of the, it's one of like I like to call it, it's probably the biggest challenge South Carolina faces today. Is, I mean, look, I have a Suburban, and I will drive from one end of the parking lot to the other. It's, it's a hard habit to break. But if I have a meeting in downtown Charleston, instead of going out the parking lot, getting in my car, driving 8 blocks and reparking, I'll take an Uber and I'm there in 4 minutes. Instead of the half hour that it takes to get and drive. So we're learning, not as fast maybe as we could, but the advancement of these public transportation systems and facilities. I keep harping on Charlotte, but the mass transit, the high-speed rail, those things. I mean, and there are several very, very forward-thinking projects that are in various stages of discussion, and that I think that we'll certainly see that are really going to further drive the economic development, and because people think of South Carolina as a sleepy little southern town, and
with tourism,
slow, and we also
drink sweet tea, chicken bog,
exactly.
We're not just chicken bog, guys. I'm not just chicken bog for the viewers either.
That's right.
All right,
that's
fine.
right.
I just want to emphasize that.
But we do love a good chicken bog.
Absolutely, 100%.
And but just talk about the tourism. I mean, Charleston's 11 and 12 years now, one of the most friendly cities, highest tourism rating.
It's the best place to live in the world. I was listening to a podcast this morning, and it's like what some publication said that. I mean, I agree. Yeah, testify.
Yeah,
exactly.
It is.
Yep.
And so with the 40 or more people that move here a day, they're moving for jobs. They're not just because it's a great place to live, but there is the fundamental economic development. I mean, one of the best things I believe that happened to Charleston was the closure of the naval base. When that happened, they created an economic development alliance, and they started actively soliciting businesses to move to the Charleston area. And that's been 7 years, a long time. And it has really taken on a life of its own. And I mean, you see it in Boeing and Volvo and Mercedes, but it's the trickle down effect of those employers. I mean, Boeing builds the airplane, but what people don't really stop and think about is all the people that work there and build the airplanes, they got to live somewhere. They got to buy groceries, shoes, their kids got to go to school, they got to get their teeth cleaned, all those things, all those goods and services that are ancillary, not just for the Boeing employees, but the employees that work at the wiring harness facility that builds the harnesses that go in the planes. So, it just really builds and grows on itself. And we've been incredibly fortunate and very healthy economic development attitude statewide. And I mean, Myrtle Beach, Greenville, Columbia, everywhere. I mean, it's a very business-friendly state. an environment. And as those people move, they need houses, and so that's really helped to I mean, you know, I believe one of the, if transportation is the biggest challenge, the second biggest challenge is housing and the delivery of housing in a timely manner. I mean, you know, there's 900,000 people in Metro Charleston, and you look at a growth rate and you say, okay, 5% growth rate, right? Well, and statistically, the math on that is insignificant considering a 5% growth rate in Metro Dallas, right? I mean, just the gross numbers are off the charts.
Right.
And I want to go on the record now is COVID is over. It's gone here. It's not a consideration. But while COVID was going on, it was one of the catalysts that really helped teach us how to pay more attention and become more mobile, agile in the way we live every day. And you know, and kind of as a result of some of those things, it created a perfect storm, which I believe that we've about come out of now, because, and we've had real estate and economic recessions before, but we really haven't ever had one like what we're emerging from now. And I call it the perfect storm, because you have interest rates rising, and you have the cost of goods increasing, and you know, big component of that is supply chain. How do we get goods from wherever in the world they are to wherever they need to be? Lumber, I mean, sheetrock, you know, price of plywood was $73 or something.
That was a big shortage back.
Should be like $9, right? And so that drives the cost of housing up, but it delays the schedule, which is probably more valuable than the actual. If you could get it and build it, that's one thing. But if you have to wait 6 months to get the goods to build it, that's another problem. So you've got interest rates, you've got cost of goods, supply chain issues, and then the third nail in the coffin, so to speak, is this labor force issue.
Labor force.
And
keeping
you know,
our talent here.
Being in the retail business, the number one challenge I hear from business owners, operators, and it's not relegated to any one business or industry, probably more prevalent in the food service, restaurant business, how hard it is to keep and maintain talent, because there are more jobs than there are people willing to take them. And, you know, I had a friend of mine owns a great restaurant just right down the street. And I asked him, I said, you know, what do you know, he said, well, you know, we're going to close on Monday and Tuesday. I'm like, why? I mean, you're full every day. He goes, yeah, but if I don't give my people those 2 days off, they may not come back next week. They'll go somewhere else that they don't have to work, all that.
Those are local spots too that are unfortunately experiencing that too. You want to keep that cultural identity too.
Exactly. Exactly. And it's you know, the mom and pop shops that have the college kids working there part time. All the way up to the, you know, the biggest of the grocery stores, the biggest employers in the retail trade is you know, they don't make a lot of money, and their loyalty is not very great, you know, and so they jump from job to job, sometimes for $1 or more. And so, but what we've seen here, particularly in Charleston and South Carolina by and large, is, I know there's minimum wage and all those things, but we've seen employers increase wages, benefits, and other ancillary employment benefits, if you call them, time off, flexible time, you know, work partly from home, whatever. Those kind of things have really done wonders. And you know, we're a very adaptive bunch in South Carolina. And we'll figure it out. I mean, we will do what it takes to keep the business going.
Collaboration. You know, that's how we're going to see our economy move forward. Is that as we move forward, we need to have all the communities, you know, whether it's governments, people working together. working together to move us our economic and community interests forward. What I like about Carolina Retail Experts is that you guys have all your operations together. You guys work very well together with your tenants, with your with the buildings that you represent. What kind of organizations, can you maybe talk a little specifics on what you work, community organizations that you work with, and the concept of collaboration?
Well, it's interesting, and as you know, since the 80s, as I've witnessed the evolution of the retail commercial real estate business, we've seen tremendous changes, and by and large, they're due to social media. The ability of people to connect locally, but on a national and even global scale, to understand what people are doing in Switzerland, that could work here.
Yeah.
And so, and you can learn from those people at a level and a rate that you've never experienced before. And so, other than being the grant board at Coastal Carolina, which I think is a tremendous organization and operation for.
We appreciate your leadership on that on our board. Yes, sir.
I'm a huge supporter. I just want to get a plug in there.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
And the students and teaching the next generation the right way to do things, because they're very smart. They've learned, they've been collaborators their entire life. Like, I have a son in college now, but during COVID, he was in high school and he couldn't leave the house. And so it changed the way people socialize. He began, a lot of Xbox, and that's how he communicated. I'd walk in, they'd have 15, 20 people in this Xbox party, and they'd be playing a game, but really what they were doing is just talking and chatting and hanging out. Yeah. And collaborating. But it's different than the way it was done 10 years ago or 30 years ago. But what we've seen evolve is the ability of the global community to be able to come together and touch and reach people at, 20 years ago, it would have taken a miracle for us. We're on social media all the time and great friends, but it started there. That's how we met.
That's how I met you. It was like, I think I reached out to you and it was like, man, this guy's awesome.
I was like, dude, you're great. This is wonderful. So
yes, sir.
So the collaboration of these national, like I'm a member, certified commercial investment member, CCIM.com. Yep. Which is the world's premier provider of commercial real estate education and networking. And I'm on the Institute Board of Directors. We've got a program with Coastal Carolina.
I got to put a plug in for that, actually. We do offer a CCIM designation courses through our MBA program. We have the CI 101, CI 102. That's 4 classes that you have to take to get the designation along with the test. But Coastal, we have those opportunities for you. We got to talk about that at some point. We got to fit that in somewhere because in your leadership in that, right?
And so I've been a 25-year designee in CCIM. And through the organization, it's the top commercial real estate people, and they're not all retail, they're industrial, office, and other sectors. But it's great because you meet these people, you collaborate with these people who may be in California or in Myrtle Beach or here in Charleston. It doesn't matter. You have that common bond, and so you can reach out to them, you can meet them, you can talk to them. What are you doing? What are you seeing? And I've held all the leadership positions in South Carolina, from president, vice president, secretary, treasurer, board member. I'm on the CCIM Institute Board of Directors. I'm a huge proponent of that, of the Institute and everything it provides, which is the number one, is the networking and collaboration. Yep. And so, and that's a big component of it. And then the other thing that has really kind of evolved more so in just the last few years is the collaboration between developers and retailers and property owners with the municipalities. And I say that as a broad,
keeping a theme,
right?
Mind the theme of the community, the flavor, maintaining the flavor. It's spicing up a little bit.
All about bringing the concept to the community, doing the right thing, making the property better, and the public-private partnerships, the 3 Ps, or as they call it, have evolved, have literally exploded over the years because, generally speaking, the municipalities don't have an unlimited budget, even though your tax bill may make you think that they do.
Yeah.
But the development, if you like, Morrison Yard's a great example. The municipality, the city of Charleston, and throughout the region, they have decided these are the things that are important for our residents, and they do a lot of polls and everything, come up with that. And then the developers can afford to incorporate ride sharing. They can afford to incorporate bike racks. They can afford to incorporate all these other amenities that otherwise you wouldn't really think of if you didn't have that, and that's not technically a public-private partnership. There are a couple in town, but that's a situation where the development itself, because it's going and growing and there's economic benefits of the development, the developer can afford to invest more and create the environment, if you will, that the municipalities are looking for, which is better for the people, because it all comes down to the people. Give the people what they want.
Yep.
And so these public-private partnerships, we've gotten into a habit recently of when we have a tenant looking at a particular property or a particular market or submarket, we'll reach out to the economic development folks. We'll reach out to the mayor's office or whoever it is there, or someone's buying a shopping center. They'll say, hey, we're looking at buying the shopping center. What do you want? What would you like to see? Because if you go against the grain, it gets really, really hard.
Yeah.
Right. But it's so much easier to align the interests of the tenant, the landlord, property owner, the municipality, and the customer. It all comes down to the customer. Give the people what they want, and it creates a better project. And that's why we've seen, development is still a challenge, but the developments that we see are much more customer centric and relative to what the people really need and want, how we live today. And as we go forward, I'm absolutely convinced we'll see more and more public-private partnerships, and with the Boeings and these big employers, their tax incentives and things like that. So those are all good for the people and more Palmetto happenings.
Exactly. No, I mean, there's going to be opportunity there, and this is why I like to interview people like you, because you guys understand what's going on. You had the right mindset, the right vision for what's going on in the Palmetto State and the state of South Carolina. And is there anything else that you'd like to highlight, while we're on this episode? I know you're not going to. This is not the last time I'll be asking to be on the show,
right?
But let me know. Tell me what's some near future happenings with the Carolina Retail Experts and John Orr.
So we are very active. We've got 4 deals that were signed last week that I can't tell you exactly who they are yet, but they'll be coming out very soon. I would say that
the newsletter, they need to stay in touch with, right?
Be in the newsletter. Go to www.cre.expert.
Yep.
And that's our website. All of our social media links, Carolina Retail Experts, John Orr CCIM, Instagram, Twitter, LinkedIn, TikTok, you name it. Yep. We're everywhere. And you can follow and join the newsletter. You'll be the first to know of all the retail happenings as they become available. So those things, we keep everybody posted when it happens. But I would say I would close and say that the state of the retail commercial real estate business is very strong. Occupancy levels are mostly at a historic high. There's the barriers to development and physically the land available, the time to permit, entitle, construct is longer than it's ever been. So we're going to see, I would anticipate we're going to see rents continue to be very strong, if not rise in certain sectors. The retailers, and a lot of this comes from the adaptations made during COVID, the retailers have learned how to operate more efficiently. For example, Chipotle has incorporated what they call a Chipotle lane, which is a pickup window in their
I like
store,
that.
which,
Chipotle.
which is great. I mean, it's not a drive-through. You don't order there. You order on the app and pick it up at the store. So all the retailers have either evolved or died. And if they didn't evolve, they're not around anymore. So the ones that are here, they do a much better job of retailing their goods, their services.
Yeah.
And so we're going to continue to see that happen. And, you know, there'll always be companies that go bankrupt and fall out over time, and new companies that come along. And but the retail business, brick and mortar stores are, there's a higher number of stores, store counts, square footages across the country than there ever have been. And so we're going to continue to see that grow because those are driven by population. And I know that, I mean, everybody shops online and buys things online, but the omni-channel is the ultimate game changer for these retailers.
Yeah.
And not just soft goods retailers, but also for restaurants. You order online, you go to pick it up in the store, you have it delivered, whatever it is. So the retail business is absolutely healthier than it's ever been in the history of the world. I mean, we have the best retailers in the world operating today, and it's only going to get better, and they're going to expand and grow.
And I appreciate you guys for attracting some great retail companies to the state of South Carolina. Fantastic. You guys are awesome. Thank you so much, John, for being with us today.
Thanks, Kobe. Glad to be here.
Thank you for listening to this episode of Palmetto Happenings at Kobe. Stay tuned for future episodes and follow John Orr's social media, the John Orr, CCIM, this Carolina Retail Experts, and make sure to follow the Grant Center for Real Estate Economics on social media. And of course, connect with me on LinkedIn and Twitter and Instagram. Thank you guys for listening, and I'll see you next time. Thank you.